Well, that's 2012 done and dusted. It's been quite an eventful year for a lot of people, and Ronan Parke is no exception. I suppose the question is, what has Ronan given us in 2012? Or, if you want to look at it from the uber intellectual point of view, what has the world let Ronan Parke give us in 2012? No albums, which is slightly disappointing, but this is good news as well, because it means that Ronan's schedule has just been far too busy to produce an album, which means he's been travelling around the world and fomenting what can only be described as a very loyal fan base, which is going to be very useful for any artist, really. It's all very well having a brief glimpse of fame, but if the fan base loyalty isn't there, it's not going to last. You don't want to mention Rick Astley, but you always do end up mentioning Rick Astley in these kind of situations, really. But it would be nice if Ronan could get a song that is as popular as Rick Astley's song, but obviously you don't want him to have Rick Astley's type of fame, so I think he's choosing the best option, really. And, playing it with a bit more intent, really. And sincerity, of course. And, before I begin, I've got a cold. It wouldn't be Christmas without a cold. So you'll have to excuse my geeky nasally tone and the fact that I'm not talking very quickly. Whenever I end up doing one of these, it always seems to be when I have a cold. I think that's the only time when I get knocked out enough to sit in an armchair and talk for any length of time. I'm too fidgety for this normally. So yeah, anyway, the first song of 2012 was We Are Shooting Stars, which came out in the summer. And I have to say I really liked this. I thought this was a great song, in pretty much every respect. You know, I was listening to it and trying to make mental notes of points I should make about, you know, why it wasn't good, and I really couldn't find any that weren't just silly nitpicks. And you can take silly nitpicks with any song. But all round, I thought it was pretty much exactly the kind of song that you would expect to see in the top 10 and not think anything else of it other than the fact that it was a top 10 pop song. That was pretty much ideal. And on the single, which is kind of an EP, there was 5 different versions of it. So even if you didn't like the pop sound, because you just don't like the current pop sound, there was a club version, acoustic version, and a couple of other versions. And my favourites were the normal pop one, which sounds a bit like a Katy Perry song. But that's no detriment to it. I've heard lots of songs on the radio and I thought, oh, that's a new Katy Perry song, and it's turned out to be somebody completely different. And when Katy Perry first came out, I used to hear her on the radio thinking that she was somebody else. So I don't think this is a reason for criticism. That's just what happens in the pop charts, really. And yeah, I like the pop version, because I like Katy Perry as well. I like that style of modern pop. But I like the club version as well, the extended club version, the one that's about 5 minutes and 9 long. I wasn't too keen on the normal club version, but the extended club version I thought was very nice. You know, that made me want to dance, so that's a good sign, really. And the acoustic version was nice because there's no auto-tuning in it. And although auto-tuning is a sound that people tend to put in pop songs now because that's the current style, even when artists don't need it, and Ronan Parke doesn't need it, but it is just to make the sound. The acoustic version is nice because it's a way of proving that it's not actually needed, it's just there for the effect. The acoustic version is very nice. So I was very pleased with that, and again, I don't know why his phone's not constantly ringing by the modern equivalents of Pete Waterman and the Elk, trying to get him on contract to make lots of money out of him. Because I thought that's what happened in the music industry. I thought when there was a talent, then the talent scouts would just go out and almost demand that they make money out of you. And I can't believe that there's not like hordes of industry bigwigs circling around Ronan Parke, because with an exceptional pop voice and a serious voice, whichever way he wants to sing it, combined with being young, blonde, good looking and working class background and all that kind of thing, then, you know, the industry moguls, they must just have dollar signs in their eyes. I mean, I don't understand why he's not already a regular feature in the top 10. But I suppose this could relate back to spending more time on building up a firmer fan base and getting a few more years of experience before, you know, jumping into the deep end, maybe, I don't know. But We Are Shooting Stars, as I say, I've no idea why that wasn't, you know, a top 10 hit, and why it wasn't played to death on the radio at the time, because it sounds to me like an ideal summer song, really. Just the kind of thing that, you know, most people would purchase at that time. And it wasn't over catchy, and you know, it wasn't irritating, and his voice on it is superb. I suppose it sounds youthful, but it's not a childish voice at all. It's very smooth, I suppose. It's a very smooth voice. I mean, there's a lot of range there, but he goes from the into the ranges sort of seamlessly, and with a tone that is not grating. One of the hardest things for a child performer is to have a very grating sound, sort of like high pitched and squeaky, if you like, but that just isn't there with Ronan. It's very what's the word? Sort of wholesome, I suppose. A very wholesome sound. So yeah, that was that one. It's in a way, it's just a shame. The only criticism is that was the only song we got. You know, there should have been more of that, really. And then the Christmas song, the other song we got from Ronan this year. Not Alone This Christmas. I hope I've got that title right. It's come out so recently, and I've got a terrible memory for names. obviously listening to it just before this video to make sure I'd remembered everything right. I have such an appalling memory for names. I hope I've got that name right anyway. But yeah, that was also a very nice song, and he's on this particular single, he's in collaboration with Lucille Johns, who's another exceptional young talent. And Ronan, of the 3 songs on this release, Ronan's only in 2 of them, and the third one is Lucille Johns doing a cover version of Rihanna's Diamonds. And to be honest, I think Lucille John's version of Diamonds is better than Rihanna's. I apologise to Rihanna, and I hope this doesn't, influence her to jealousy him or anything like that, but I genuinely prefer Lucille John's version of Diamonds to Rihanna's. If I had the 2 songs next to me, I would always choose to listen to Lucille's. So that's a wonderful talent for him to be working with, and I hope they continue this partnership for more songs in the future. I think it'd be great if the 2 talents can work together. Of course, you have the problem of having 2 big talents together. They might over-talent each other and over-compete for talent. And that does happen quite a lot in music, but not all the time. There's just as many cases where it does work as where it doesn't. So there's no hard and fast rules with that kind of thing. But I think Lucille has a great sound, and they could influence each other really well, I think, and hopefully compete each other upwards. And yeah, the song collaborated with on this single, Not Alone This Christmas. I think I got that right, I don't know. Again, it's really nice. They've got a really nice sound, and they both do complement each other superbly. And again, I'm sort of at a loss for criticisms for the song. And it's got a fantastic introduction as well. It's a shame the introduction sound couldn't have been played more during the song, because I thought that was a really nice sort of original and catchy sound. I did actually have one criticism of this song, which isn't really a criticism, but it would have been nice if they had another version of this song on that release without the finger clicking, because finger clicking's alright, but I think it's had its day really. I think we've all heard enough songs with finger clicking on, and I was listening to it and imagining it without the finger clicking, and I couldn't imagine it being worse. And when the finger clicking does stop in the track, I actually prefer it. So I think that would be my only criticism of that song. But no, again, the singing is just superb. It's yeah, it must be horrible for the older performers to have these wonderful young talents put them to shame like this. And again, I don't know why this wasn't top 10, top 20 single played excuse me, relentlessly on the radio during Christmas. But then I'm a big fan of Goldfrapp, so I know what it's like when talent doesn't always get into the top 10, and you look at Florence and the Machine as well, and it's like they've been producing amazing sounds for years, and yet it's very difficult still for them to maintain a permanent position in the top 10. But yeah, I think all that kind of thing is mainly, it's not about the music at that point, it's about who's producing it, what deals they've got, and who they're in conjunction with, and all these other factors that go on behind the scenes that don't actually relate to the music, but relate to people in suits, again, the money aspect. Very important aspect, but you can make good music with or without it, and it's just how notorious it gets is normally the money aspect. And so yeah, I think I think they're producing a sound that will sit easily without being irritating on the radios. And iPlayers and iPhones and internets and all that kind of thing. And I don't think it's a sound that's specific to children. I think it appeals to pretty much whatever the standard pop market age range is. I don't think that anybody listening to the song would immediately say, oh, that's something by a child, I don't want to hear that. I don't think anybody would make that parallel just from listening to it. So yeah, I'm very tempted to go on a deep rant about why good music doesn't get in the top 10 and why very often sort of kind of crappy stuff does. And of course, this year, of course, one of the oldest hacks in the business, Tony Blackburn, was doing a very well publicised redressing of the balance, where he was taking all the great songs from the past that only ever got to number 2 because something silly had got to number 1, because we in Britain just like silly songs, and it's kind of one of our national sins, really, in that, a great artist can put their life and energy and the sum of all their parts into one song and then sit there on Christmas Eve and watch Mr. Blobby dance in front of the screen because the British public just like Mr. Blobby. But no, I'm not going to go into a massive rant about that, so this is just a review of Ronan Parke's songs, really. I'll save that for another day. And yeah, so I've been delighted with that. The only song I wasn't delighted with was Silent Night. I don't know whose idea that was, but that was just all wrong, really. I mean, even from the premise, the idea of Ronan doing anything with the word silent in it is just an anathema, really. I don't understand that at all. It's like, he's loud, everything about him is loud. He's quite young, so he probably sleeps a lot, but I don't think he'd ever really chosen silentness as his, I don't know, image or personality, or I don't know. I think if he was going to do a Christmas carol, I think he would have been more suited to Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Mariah Carey had a similar idea. She did a version of Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and that's a really loud and booming song, and a good vocalist should really be able to show off their talents with that one. And when the King's College Choir do it, I mean, you can search it on YouTube, the King's College Choir version of Hark the Herald Angels Sing. I mean, you'd have to have a heart of stone not to well up by the end of that song. It's so overwhelming and powering. But I wasn't too impressed with Mariah Carey's version because she didn't let her backing singers do enough work on it. And if there's one thing that song needs, it's some really beefy backing singers doing a lot of work for you. And I think she put a bit too much variety into the lyrics. She was sort of like jumping about a bit too much instead of just, I don't know, taking more even curves in and out of changes of pitch and tone and speed level. But yeah, Silent Night, no, that was just all wrong. And on top of that, it really does sound like Ronan's voice is breaking up terribly on that song. Maybe he had a cold. Maybe that was the time he had a cold, or maybe that this is the time when his voice is actually breaking. I don't know, but from We Are Shooting Stars, it sounded like it had already broken and he'd survived that challenge very well. But for Silent Night, I don't know, it just seems like, did one of his relatives ask him to do it or something? It didn't feel right, you know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's his favourite Christmas song and he was desperate to sing it and I'm being ultra mean, but I don't know, feel free to disagree with me, but now I think I've heard many versions of Silent Night, and that one won't ever reach my top 10 of Silent Night covers, I'm afraid. But, no, that wasn't really what the two singles were about. That was kind of the freebie of them. Anyway, my voice is about to go. I'm about to die, so I better round off now and say Happy New Year, and let's hope we get some more stuff out of Ronan this year, and keep up the support, I suppose. Otherwise, we won't get anything. So yeah, have a good Happy New Year. Hope you have a nice Christmas, and bye.